You do not have to go out of your way to try to encourage women in there. You just have to treat all pilots, men and women, in a certain respectful way so that positive energy is moved on to the next.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
It's a Monday. Here we are, and I am talking to Erika Armstrong today. Those of you who know who Erika Armstrong is are very lucky. She is an amazing person. Go find her on LinkedIn. She has 500,000 followers on LinkedIn. Erika is an amazing human. She was very gracious to take time out of her day to talk to me. She is a professor. She is a pilot. She is an author, and she is all sorts of great things. Erika and I had an awesome conversation. She wrote a book called A Chick in the Cockpit, and I'll talk more about that in the interview. You should certainly check it out. And I hope you really enjoy this episode. Before we jump into it, if you have a question or a comment, you think of a guest that you think I should interview, send me an email over at podcast@spitfireelite.com, and I would love to hear from you. And always a pitch for leaving me a review. 1 star, 5 stars, whatever. Just write something. When you write something into the little machine that looks at all of the search engine optimization stuff, the more things that are written, the more people can find the podcast. So I hope you get to fly today. And if you do, I hope you think about Erika Armstrong and her flying. She's awesome. You're awesome. Enjoy the episode. And last but not least, let's have a quick word from our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't have this awesome podcast. Hey, pilot, it's Nick. I want to tell you about a great friend of the show, Timothy P. Pope. He's a financial planner, and he's completely focused on the professional pilot. He's the kind of guy you want to go to for real talk to help you figure out your financial future. With so many upgrades and so many transitions and so many things going on, you owe it to yourself to give him a call. He'll help you design and execute really smart financial planning strategies, whether it's retirement planning, investment management, military transition, tax planning. He's a great financial planning partner. Timothy P. Pope, CFP, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Give him a shout. All the information's in the show notes. You should definitely tell him I told you to call. All right. Hey, pilot, I am here with a huge awesome day of being a fanboy with Miss Erika Armstrong. Good day, Erika. How are you?
Good day, everybody. I'm doing good.
Man, this is so exciting for me to be talking to Erika. I have been following her on LinkedIn for years. I've listened to all her interviews, and she's just an awesomely dynamic person. So I brought her on the show to pour into you to help you figure out if this is a great job for you, because I think it is, and I think Erika thinks it is, and that's why we have a podcast. But Erika, will you just tell the pilot a little bit about yourself, what your background is, so we can get some perspective in case they haven't heard of you?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm so happy to be here and that Nick is doing this platform so we can talk to you. So just my quick aviation journey. I actually became a pilot by accident, and I'd love to talk about that when we get done here. But I started off working at an FBO called a fixed base operator in Minnesota at the Flying Hall Airport. Yeah, I can drop that accent anytime. But I just started learning about the industry. The company also had a charter department. So I got to work in the avionics department. I worked the front desk for many years. The front desk chick is what I was called. And then was able to start learning about the industry, took one flight lesson next door, got the addiction started. I couldn't stop. So I finally got into the King Airs and then worked for a company that did air ambulance and nighttime cargo and all those crappy jobs. So I did that for years, built up my hours, started flying the jets, the corporate jets, and then got hired at Northwest Airlines. Started as a flight engineer. Most people don't even know what that is anymore, so we can talk about that. Got to the captain seat on the 727. Of course, all the mergers and layoffs happened during merger mania. They got bought out by Delta. They shut down that division. So I went back into business aviation. So I have tried just about everything in this industry. I also spent 6 years as an aviation professor teaching aircraft systems and propulsion. I would definitely like to go back into that a little bit. The pay is horrible, but we'll see if I can wiggle that in. But I've been in the training side now for many years. I love understanding how people learn, and especially how pilots learn. What is the tipping point? What are those bad habits you pick up early? What can we do to fix that in the very beginning? I read NTSB reports, and somebody has 10,000 hours and they make these crazy mistakes. So it's always interesting to know what we could have done in the beginning to fix that thought process. So there's so many aspects in aviation. I've been trying to do a whole bunch of them so that I can bring that knowledge back to all of you and show you all the different pathways out there that you can take.
Man, that is so important right there. The part about that really stuck out to me was exactly what you said, the pilot with 10,000 hours that puts it upside down, gets in that skid turn stall or whatever right at final. And the skill sets that you build, the habits that you build, the pilot that's listening right now, or the person that's getting ready to start, that is so valuable that there is the things you're doing are to keep you alive and to keep the people with you alive. And it just takes a split second. Just a quick left foot when it should have been the right foot. And that's key. I think it's a beautiful aspect. Thank you for bringing that up. So you said you fell into flying by accident. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll reveal my age here a little bit, but I graduated high school in 1986. So when I was in elementary school, we would have career day every year, and they would take the boys and the girls into separate rooms to talk about career day. What? And I remember the first time I was, still pretty young, but just being so offended that they would actually put us into a separate. I always wanted to know what they were telling the boys in the other room, right?
They were smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, right? I was so indignant at the idea of it, but it was, I look back now and I'm like, how insulting, because they really did tell us here's all these career paths that you can take here. You could be a librarian or a secretary. And we've changed so much. And I know we get frustrated with ourselves, even right now with the percentages of women in aviation. The reality is it does take a couple generations to kind of correct that. And we're on the right path. But so in my mind, growing up, never once did becoming a pilot ever enter my brain because it just wasn't part of the thought process. So I love that you are doing podcasts like this and that we can get the word out and just put that idea in the back of somebody's head so that, along the way, even if it's not front and center, along the way, they might see a few images and hear some stories and think, you know what? This isn't really rocket science. This is something that you can do, have a little self-confidence, and we can help you with that. So just getting that idea out and introducing aviation at an earlier age. If you think back over the last 20 years, we used to have these great air shows. That's how people would get introduced. And then 9/11 happened, and then all the security requirements and the economy, and then COVID, and that spirit kind of gets shut down. So, and of course the headlines saying, passengers beat up flight attendant. The glamour of aviation has been diminished, but it's still there. And I think we in the industry need to do a better job of polishing that off. Still talking about the truthfulness of it, but bringing that spirit back and showing the next generation that this really is an amazing industry. Even if you don't want to be a pilot, the industry of aviation is amazing.
It is super amazing. And it's surprisingly small. I mean, it's got like 50,000 people that work in it, but every time I turn around, it's just somebody else I know or I follow somehow. It's amazing.
Well, and actually, there's millions that actually work in it. If you factor in all of the ground support, all those little elements, even business aviation, all the way down to the charter and the scheduling person, there's way more than we even realize in the industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. And 50,000 seems like a big number to me. That's probably why I brought it up. You are a huge advocate. You wrote an awesome book called Chick in the Cockpit. And I think, how do your experiences lead you to want to advocate and to want to really put the word out that this is a good job. This is a good place and women are allowed. Like, how did you kind of come into that?
Yeah, when I try to tell people, and there are other industries that have the same element, but being a pilot, you don't just be a pilot, you become a pilot. It weaves its way into your whole entire lifestyle, for better or worse.
Yeah, it's your identity.
Exactly. You do. You become this thing, and you have to live a life to become this thing. You have to, you're constantly in training. You have to learn how to work through all those challenges, like even simple things like I flew red eyes for years. All those physical challenges that become mental challenges, it can be exhausting, but also a challenge for yourself on a daily basis. So I know tons of people that have jobs. They go do their thing and then they push back from their desk and then they're done. And there's some satisfaction in that too. And it's something that you have to keep in mind when you do enter into this industry, because it doesn't just affect you. And I know when you start in your teens and 20s, you're like, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. That's exactly what I thought. Seriously, if you pulled me aside at 20 and said, you need to think about this, you're going to have a family someday, I would say, absolutely not. But never say never, because for most of us, that's going to be part of our human experience. We're going to want that family. And then the conversation comes in then, how do you deal with this crazy schedule? So we don't often tell our pilots, hey, as you evolve as a person, the people in your life need to be really told what is involved with being a pilot, and make sure that they are aware of what that looks like and the burden on them. After spending a lot of time in the aviation industry, I see that it's the people that are behind raising the kids by themselves. They are the ones that actually are working harder a lot of times than you are. So to make sure that that's in your mindset when you move through your life.
Yeah, I just had that conversation with my wife last night because we were going through the schedule of all the conferences and everything else, and got to be the conversation of, I have 5 kids, you have 2 kids, and that, like, raising these children and like being gone and not being there for that. For me, I want to be there every second. I love my kids so much. I was put into this family, and this family was created, and I am the one responsible for making sure that they are provided for. And so there's value and there's goodness in that, I think. Yeah, we could do a whole show on how to be an awesome spouse, because it is so important. And thinking about that in your 20s, it seems like a long way away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. I wish somebody had said that to me back then. If I could talk to my younger self, I wouldn't have believed them at all. I would have totally said, oh, whatever. But at least that would have been in my head. So that conversation, that thought process, to actually have that empathy for that other person. We spend so much time talking about work-life balance and, oh, you can achieve it. You can't in aviation. I'm sorry. You're going to have to come to that realization that there are times where you are just so unbalanced, and you're going to have to learn to operate under that condition. So, there are your own methods of doing that, but you have to be at least aware of it. The burnout and a lot of that, then will fall onto the rest of the family. But if there are things that we can give to our students and people entering into aviation, some of these tools and thought processes, so that it's not such a, weight as you're going through certain segments of your life.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's a double-edged sword. Like, first off, it's the best job because when you're not doing it, you're not doing it. But also, you can't leave it. So it just is part of you, and being aware and being present to those, because all it takes is a couple clicks on YouTube or the TikTok machine or whatever to see the single pilots out there going out and doing the non-rev and going to Sri Lanka and going to Bora Bora and all the places, and they're living it and they're doing the videos and it's cool as hell. And like, I should do some TikToks about me changing diapers and like and being exhausted from the red eye, right? And like all those things. But it's all right and it's good. But life happens slowly, and you're not born with a college kid. Your baby's not born going to college, right? Your baby starts off slow and small, and same thing with your family. Starts off slow and small. So that's cool. And I'll also say, we're going down a spouse rabbit hole here, but like when you are having those conversations about being a pilot, if there's resentment from your partner about that job, it doesn't go away. And so you need to understand that and be clear with that, and make sure you have the conversations early about what life is like, and love them where they are, right? So
exactly. And I learned the hard way, and that's why I have the book, because I didn't know that before. So yeah.
Tell me about the book. Will you please tell the pilot about the book?
Yeah, like we've been talking, we, of course, don't have a lot of women's stories in this industry. So it was an opportunity for me to bring women into the cockpit, a little bit more rough and tumble. So I just caveat that it's not for young kids because pilots swear a lot. I'm just telling you right now, get used to it. It's part of the mindset. So that's also understanding you're going to have some thick skin. I don't care. We've come a long way, but there is still a lot of quick, blunt talk in aviation. It's part of the way the characters are in aviation, so you got to get used to that early. So I'll just mention it to you. The heroes of the story are actually my book club. The conversation is mostly about we're all going to have our own unique challenges. Some of them are larger than others. While I was writing the book, some of the books that I was reading, Eat, Pray, Love was out, Wild was out. I love those stories. But at the end of the day, most of us can't travel around the world or go hike the Pacific Trail. So I wanted to show a different aspect of having a traumatic event happen in your life and how you can get through it. And so we're all going to have those. So it was my way of combining all those things I want to talk about. Aviation, I love writing. I love the power of words and stories. I'm bringing them all into one book. And then the book has a book club discussion at the end. So I've been asked to join in with book clubs. So I do that for free. Just join in. It's so much fun to hear from people actually around the world, hearing women's experiences through this too. So it's got to do a lot of things with one book.
I love it. And it's great that it's kind of dual-hatted to be like such a great story, but also a fun draw to encourage women to pursue this path, right? So do you feel like our industry is doing a good job helping entice, I guess, like what's the word, like to bring women into our arena here?
Honestly, they are working so hard to do it, but they don't necessarily go about it the right way. They truly, all of the airlines, and I always have to laugh, they always have to make it more complicated than it has to be.
Oh my God.
I was teasing this one, I won't even say who their organization was, but I was at their website and they had 20 rows of all of the pictures of the members and not a single woman on the board. And so I was just kind of teasing them. I know somebody on there. I'm like, hey, I see you just had an election. I'm like, and so the response was, well, we need to go out and create another board to figure out how to, so I'm like, no, you have to actually believe in what you're saying and you need to actually have women in your boardroom. So living by example is truly the best way. You do not have to go out of your way to try to encourage women in there. You just have to treat all pilots, men and women, in a certain respectful way so that positive energy is moved on to the next. What I'm seeing, because I'm out there so much meeting people, is a lot of people ending their careers have such a negative spin on it for a lot of reasons. And so they aren't encouraging that next generation.
This is a hard time to end your career too.
Yeah, look at all the people who had ended ungloriously during COVID, and the economy and the ultra low cost carrier concept and just the changing dynamics of what aviation used to be and the respect that being a pilot held kind of got diminished. When I was first getting my first jobs, people were actually paying to sit in the right seat of a King Air. And so now I look now at how different that is, and I can feel that respect coming back. And I think that will help encourage now that up and coming generation. The pay is better. Gosh, I remember Great Lakes, and you're going to think I'm kidding, but when you got hired, you really were given information about how to get food stamps because you were making less than minimum wage after all these years of getting there. So a pay is a barrier for everybody, men and women. So seeing that change is a huge first step. And if we could just ride on that momentum, keep that spirit up there, making sure we're going into the classrooms young enough and talking about it, sharing the good and the bad, and having podcasts like this so we can get the word out will help that percentage.
Yeah. And, you brought up a good point earlier about the board and all men on there. And I like to tell the story when I am just like you. I meet a lot of people. I'm a 6'4" white guy, and I meet a lot of women and underrepresented populations that from all over the world, not just from the United States. And I try to convey that these companies, they don't want the picture, they don't want to take a company photo and have it look exactly like this company photo from 1955, right? Like we need the difference there because customer, right? The whole point of having the job is because it's a business, and the customer is not a 6'4" white guy. The customer could be, it could be, but it's a swath of humanity, and so you need that diversity of thought. And so I need, like, this is exactly, like, I want to encourage those people that are thinking it's not for me because I don't look like that. Like, that's why I need you. Like, I need you not to look like that. I need you to come and be and give your input and give your insight and tell us what we're messing up and tell us what we're doing right and make us better. When iron sharpens iron like that, it's a better place to work all the way around, right?
Yeah, people just want a chance. There's too many times where they aren't even given that opportunity, and that mindset holds so strong and that barrier is so strong. Everybody's like, well, we don't want to hire someone who's not qualified. I'm like, are you kidding? You will be amazed if you give these people an opportunity. They will work so hard and be so loyal for the opportunity. So shake that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. There was like one pilot, period, in this little tiny town. And so I didn't even know about aviation. I didn't even know it was a thing. And that's like, to know that it's out there and that you can do it, you have to get your momentum. You have to put one foot forward. And once you do, you will start falling forward. And that's key, right? That's what it's all about. Now, you took some time out of the cockpit and you started flying again, right? Can you share with us what you were doing?
Yeah, raising kids a little bit. No, if you're in aviation long enough, you will get laid off, you will get furloughed. I had a job once. I got hired away from a company. I'd been there for 6 years. I was still happy there, but this other company had a recruiter, lured me away. I went to training. I got my first phone call thinking it was for a trip, and they're like, guess what? We just sold the airplane. You are out of a job.
Oh,
but see, because of that moment, I'm like, well, all right, I've got enough hours. I'm going to start turning into the airlines. And sure enough, I got hired into the airlines. So you're going to have that moment, but just hang on because it could be for the better. I made it through to the captain seat on a 727, and then that company got bought out and I was laid off and furloughed. And so at that point, because I had been in business aviation, I had done dispatching too. I had already had enough knowledge to slide back into another industry in aviation. So went back into the business aviation world, got into the training element. I went back to school, got some more education. I'm a huge advocate of education, but don't tell anybody, but I'm not a huge advocate of requiring pilots to go to 4-year colleges right now. So
me neither, man.
Really? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm an aviation professor teaching at a university. And I'm saying that, okay, we need to rethink how we educate, especially to be cognizant of each industry and what that industry needs. I just remember sitting in art history class. I understand being a well-balanced, educated person, but when I have to spend thousands of dollars on things that are not accelerating my career, and I think about that 4 years of that young energy, instead of making them strapped into a chair in a classroom, why aren't we getting them out into that industry that they're wanting to work in and train the heck out of them in that industry? So the airlines, and I know this will upset some parents, and I've got a child in college and another one going to college, so we can talk about that all day. But I think the majors now have all dropped that requirement. When the industry changes again, they'll bring it back again, and you will need that 4-year degree. Honestly, right now, even though I'm saying this, at some point you're going to need that degree. So I always recommend to my students to at least take an online college course, get that piece of paper, because it really does hold power right now, whether we like it or not. Changing the way that we educate, especially coming out of high school into colleges as an industry as a whole for higher education. I wish we could see a little more change in that.
Yeah, I think if you want to pursue this career, and it's hard, first off, it's hard being 18 years old trying to figure out, this is what I want to do for the next 40-something years, 50-something years, 1,000,000 years, whatever it is. There's a lot at stake for this one choice, but if you decide that you want to go down that path, I'm a huge fan of getting the flight training that you need and then on a parallel course doing just like you said with the online, because it is a discriminator on your app. It is like you need as many points as you can to get the job. But as you're working toward it, that's a thing you have on your application. And it's a good news story. It's a great thing to speak to, especially if you get in front of a recruiter, because it shows that you're motivated. It shows that you're hungry, and it shows that you're probably going to be a pretty good fit. So definitely. So thank you for saying that. Gosh, I do also interview people at the universities that run the programs, and I love them, but I feel like I know what I'd do with my kids if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, especially when 4-year colleges these days, you're coming out of there with a 6-figure debt, plus you have 6-figure debt from your flight training. Oh my goodness. The majority reason for men and women is equal. That final barrier is so humongous. And airlines have gotten used to all these years having all these qualified people come to them. So I'm seeing some changes in that thought process. But it also brings up the thought of always having a backup plan, because this industry, you can take one car accident and you're completely off track. So I'll just let you all know out there that March of 2019, I was driving to brunch on a Sunday morning to go see my friends, and I got T-boned by a drunk and drug driver. So there is one instant in your life where all of a sudden you're completely off your track. So I had damage in my left ear, so I've lost my hearing, in which it's a big deal, but not the main problem. But ears are also used to help you fly. It's all the equilibrium and the inner works of your ear has a lot to do with how well you fly. So that was all damaged. Unfortunately, there's no ear transplant or anything like that we can do. So, when it first happened, I was, of course, absolutely devastated. But the part of my life at that point, I had already gone through parallel tracks, and business aviation made it to the top. Commercial aviation made it to the top. I am so grateful for all of that. And I'm even more grateful because it happened. I'm still here. The driver is not. So every day is lived with a little more depth because of it. So, but it speaks to always having that little thing on the side that you have. So I had been through University of Minnesota, University of Denver, Embry-Riddle. I had all this education. So, it sounds like I'm being hypocrite because I just said you don't need it. But I'm talking about lifelong learning. I don't believe in having to spend those 4 years right out of high school sitting in a classroom. I would more like to see that energy used out there in the world, getting educated and spreading your education out through a whole lifetime. So I'm a huge advocate of it. Our world changes. We need more education as you move along. So I had that behind me to help me into any other industry I wanted to work in. So I'm still working in business aviation. I work for a company called Avbuyer, and I get to use all my experience that I couldn't do this job without having gone through everything I did. So I'm kind of teasing about the 4-year degree, but education is important, but a change in the way we do it.
Yeah, and so the key takeaway that I got is that you need to diversify yourself. This job, it's a fickle job, and it can go away in a heartbeat. First off, make sure you've got loss of license insurance, 1,000%. And long-term disability, like any of these things, like especially if you're like any pilot listening first. And second is when the music stops, whether it's probably not by your choice. And so having a side hustle is having something that you can fall back on to keep the lights on, to keep your family fed, and to keep things moving forward is key. And it's also why it's important to be a great person, because your reputation is the thing. If you need to go out and seek a job, then your reputation will be the thing that brings it to you. And boy, this industry, as we talked about earlier, everybody knows everybody, it seems like. And so you can get out there and put your foot forward, even if you're young. That is so important, because you have to be able to pivot and always be thinking about what that is. It's great if you can make enough money to have it as a part-time job. Who knows? Maybe I'll be a billionaire because of this sweet podcast I'm running. But really,
because podcasts are where all the millionaires are.
That's right. That's right. I'll just go and collect. I think I probably could make more money by collecting it on the side of the road around here. So, but also, hey, if you're a buyer, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to buy an airplane, give Erika a call. She'll hook you up.
There you go.
And that's just it. So Erika, thank you. This is such great information, I think, for the new pilot, for the person that's trying to figure it out, and especially if she is trying to get to a place where she feels like she belongs and she's welcomed. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is say, like, we want you. Let's go. Come on. Let's say, first off, if you're not already following Erika on LinkedIn, you need to. There's 500,000 people that are. But where can people find you and where can people buy your book? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, no, if you can just Google A Chick in the Cockpit, you'll find me. And honestly, when I get up every morning, I spend my first hour of my morning answering questions. So if you have a question about the most even bizarre thing, you can reach me at Erika, it's with a K, Erika, at achickinthecockpit.com, or LinkedIn, of course, is the best platform to reach me working on. So any question you might have, if you want, go to book club or go into your classroom. And also just one quick mention, I do a lot of STEM presentations, but I want you to know you do not need to be in STEM. I think in some regards, that whole program has actually backfired. When I talk to students coming into my classroom and when they say that they had a lot of hesitation about coming into the aviation program, their general concern is they felt, I just didn't think I would be smart enough. And I want you to know that aviation is logically applied math. A lot of people, they're concerned about all this math. Well, I'm telling you right now that everything that you do in the cockpit, man, you've got calculators and computers that work with you. There's no memorization of these math formulas. So
it's true.
Truly, it's logical. You're doing a weight and balance, and you'll look at it going, well, this makes absolute sense because I'm looking at where I'm moving this weight around. I get the pivot. You will get it too. And so for my tipping point, it truly was one moment. I'm sitting in the line office with all the line guys. We're hanging out, telling stories. And I'm realizing these guys are not any smarter than me. And
of course.
Like one moment like that, instill in myself going, well, wait a second. If these guys can do it, I can do it. So I want you to put that in the back of your head. There's nothing here you cannot learn one bite at a time. It's eating the elephant with one bite, but you can do that.
I've flown with a lot of window lickers, and it is like, it's seriously, like, if you were concerned that it's the knowledge thing that's going to be too hard and it's a scary thing, I want you to email me, podcast@spitfireelite.com. I will call you and we will talk through it, because that shouldn't be the thing. Like, it's a lot of new concepts to learn, but it is not something that you cannot do. It is something super important that you can absolutely accomplish and you can crush it. So do not let fear tell you that you're not good enough. Man, you got me going. That's what I'm talking
all
about.
All right.
I'm going to put all of her contact information in the show notes. If you buy the book, buy it new. Do not be the jerk that buys the used book. Buy the free, get her the money. Get it in your hand. Get the hardback. Don't buy the Kindle. Give this woman some money. All right.
No, Amazon, you can buy the audio, the paperback. It's all good. And I don't even mind if you share the book to hand it to somebody else. So just getting that word out there is the best advertising for me.
Absolutely. Give her all your money, y'all. She's great. She is such an advocate for the people in this industry, for the women in this industry. You women that are there now are standing on her shoulders, and it's awesome to have you. So Erika, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Nick. And I look forward to seeing all your contrails up there.
Yeah, let's go. See ya.
Hey, before I let you go, I need to mention one thing, because a lot of people are asking me, can you do anything? Can you help me with this? And the answer is yes. At Spitfire Elite, we will make more millionaires this year than Major League Baseball will make in the next 5 years. Our company actually does this. It's called Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. And you can find us over at spitfireelite.com. Our clients, they call us the easy button for interview prep, because everything you need to crush your interview is there in one spot. Whether it's application review or interview prep, all of it is covered. We've helped thousands of clients who are now flying at their dream jobs because our coaches gave them the one-on-one feedback that they needed to succeed on the biggest day of their life. The best part of Spitfire is our community. All Spitfire clients will get access to our private chats where they can work with each other and they can work with our coaches and get the latest information on all the airlines. If you'd like to make sure that you are 100% ready to go on your big day, there is only one choice. Everything you need is in one place, and I think it's pretty affordable. You'll have to take a look for yourself. Just go over to SpitfireElite.com and check us out. Use the coupon code PODCAST and it'll save you 10%. And by the way, I will see you on the next episode. The statements made on this show are my own opinions and do not reflect, nor are they under any direction from my employer.